A beautifully cooked steak is simple and delicious, but how to cook it perfectly? First thing, make sure you heat your pan first because you want to seal in the juices of the meat. Next, decide what cut of meat you want. So you want something that's what's known as a primary cut. So we're looking here, we've got a couple of New York steaks here. This one's rump, and then I've got a Scotch fillet. But today I think I'm going to cook the New York steak. So next we want a little bit of salt and pepper on both sides. Now only do this just before you're going to cook it because otherwise the salt will draw out the moisture of the meat. Next, brush with some olive oil. This is better than putting oil in the pan because if you put oil in the pan, it's going to burn any excess. This way you make sure it's actually on the meat. So a bit more salt and pepper and a bit more oil, and then into that hot pan. Do the same if you're putting it on a grill because obviously you don't want to pour oil on a grill. And then into the pan. That's the sound you want. That lovely, lovely sizzling sound. Now, don't be tempted to stand here and keep turning it over. If you keep turning it over, you're going to keep the heat just on the outside, the outside, the outside, and the inside will stay raw instead of being cooked through. But I want to try and cook this medium, so you have to resist the temptation of turning it over. We know the blokes at barbecues like to stand there and turn it round. It gives them something to do. Keep your tongs way away and just be patient. Your nose will very soon tell you when it's time to look at turning. Now that's smelling fantastic. I've got it on high heat and the surfaces are caramelising, but also you can see that there's moisture on the top as the blood is rising to the top, and that's usually a pretty good sign it's time to turn over. Let's just have a look under here and see. Yes, that's golden brown and crusted. We'll pop it over the other side. So now we probably had that on the first side for about 4 minutes, and I'm thinking we're going to need about 3 on this side, but once again we'll let our nose tell us and our eyes. Okay, it's smelling fantastic. Good idea now to just turn your heat down and keep it a little lower. Now, you need to feel your steak to see how well cooked it is. So you can see that there's still a fair bit of bounce in that. So what I'm going to do is take it off and rest it, and I'll show you why. But the other thing too is with the fat, it's much better to cook it with the fat on, and it'll keep it moist, and then you can cut the fat off later, or if you really do like the fat, you can always just brown it up a little bit like that as you take it off. Now, it's important to remove it to a warm spot, so I'll take that out. I'll show you how I know it's well done enough, but I'm going to just make a quick sauce in here. So I'm going to deglaze the pan, this is what it means, and get those juices. So I've got some beef stock. You have 1 part of beef stock to half a part of red wine, and then I've got some red currant jelly, which is going to help it thicken up nicely. So while that simmers away, how did I know that my steak was cooked? Well, if you put your thumb and forefinger together and you feel like that, that's rare. Go to the next finger, it's a bit firmer, that's medium rare. Next one, firmer still, medium well, and if you go to here, that is indeed well done. So let's have a look at our steak. You can see that it's got some give in it. Now the reason we're resting it, because I want it to be medium rare, the reason we're resting it is that the heat goes in from the outside and the juices all go to the middle. If I was to cut it straight away, that's when it might be tough, and that's when you lose the juices. We don't want to do that. We want to rest it so the juices go back to the outside, and we should have a beautifully rested steak. So, and I can add any juices that come out can go back into my sauce. So this just needs to boil and reduce. The alcohol has evaporated off. You always have to know that wine will boil for at least a minute to evaporate off the alcohol, and the red currant jelly is going to help it to thicken up. So now we've just got to wait for the jelly to dissolve, the sauce to reduce, the steak to rest, and I'll be ready to plate up.